one of the topics that I have been very passionate about has been like the all tech revolution that is among us. What I mean by that is that there's a lot of platforms that are coming up that you're starting to see be very competitive. Not all of them are going to last. Some of them are going to fail, but that can be said about any normie company, social media or not. But as does these trial and error efforts, people see the mistakes Parler made, specifically in not having their own servers. But all of these sorts of issues that people are now that are doing the alternatives are starting to come up with ways around that. And that's not going without notice by way of the cathedral. The people, and when you look at the cathedral, like Brother Dave Smith talks about, don't just look at the state itself, look at their extensions. So you have to look at like the corporate press and what it is that they're going to do, because they understand that that's a problem. With the growing technology, it gets further and further and further and further away from them. They can't control it as much. Blockchain technology is fucking them up. So it's only so much they can do for their bans and all of this stuff. Here's a hit piece written by the New York Times that I'm going to go over. That's a prime example of this. Some dickhead by the name of Nathaniel Popper, what a name, says they found a way to limit big tech's power using the design of Bitcoin. Companies inspired by the cryptocurrency are creating social networks, storing online content, and hosting websites without such authority. So that's fine and dandy, right? Like this whole title, right? It makes it seem like, yeah, people are finding a way around big tech's power, and that's using blockchain and this sort of technology and this decentralized internet, right? So as you see right here, when YouTube and Facebook barred thousands of Mr. Trump's supporters and white supremacists this month, many flocked to alternative apps such as Library, Mind, Sessions, and blah, blah, blah. Now, for those who don't know, I'm now on Odyssey, which is Library, owned by the same company. And this is exactly what they're going to do, is they're going to label, as to be expected, they're going to label the people that are moving to these sites as white supremacists, or terms that people generally think is a bad thing to be associated with. That's exactly what they're going to do. Right? We already seen them do it. So they want to they're going to try to paint you as the absolute worst thing. And you see right here, Facebook and Twitter prevented Mr. Trump from posting online after the Capitol rampage, saying he had broken their rules against inciting violence. Amazon, Apple, and Google stopped working with Parler, a social networking site that had become popular with the far right, saying the app had not done enough to limit violent content. You see, they understand, oh shit, we got a problem here. Companies are now finding ways to use blockchains and similar technology inspired by it to create social media networks, store online content, and host websites without any central authority in charge. Doing so makes it much harder for any government or company to ban accounts or delete content. And yes, it does. That's the fucking point. While liberals and opponents of toxic content praised the company's actions, they were criticized by conservatives, First Amendment scholars, and American the ACLU. Yes, which is actually true. They did come out and say something. Even if you agree with the specific decisions, I do not for a second trust people who are making the decisions to make universally good decisions. This is from my man's Jeremy Kaufman, which I'm in contact with. That's my man's. But basically, what you're going to see as this sort of this article, if you will, insinuates, is that they're going to label everybody that is moving to these sites as bad people in some way. You're going to be a white supremacist. You're going to be toxic. You're going to be far right. All these sorts of things. Right here, as you see right now, this is the biggest wave I've ever seen. Data scientists, blah, blah, blah. The Decentralized Web of Hate, a publication about the move of right-wing groups to decentralized technology. This has been discussed in these communities, but now we are having conversations with the broader world about how these emerging technologies may impact the world at larger scales. They don't like it. They don't fucking like it. Here you go. Last year, Arweave, a blockchain-based project for permanently storing and displaying websites, creating an archive of sites, documents from protests in Hong Kong that angered the Chinese government. Minds, a blockchain-based replacement for Facebook, founded in 2015, also became an online home to some of the right-wing personalities. Here we go. And neo-Nazis who were booted from the mainstream social media networks with fringe groups in other countries that have been targets of the government, Minds, and other similar startups funded by prominent venture capitalist firms, blah, blah, blah. One of the biggest proponents of the trends is Jack Dorsey, which you guys know is Twitter founder or CEO, wherever he is. And yeah, he did come out. I think that was more so in response to his shares dropping, where he comes out and he was like, yeah, we have to do better. Blockchains are not the only solutions. They continue. For those in search of alternatives to big tech's power, many have recently migrated to the encrypted messaging apps Signal and Telegram, which is very true, which have no need for a blockchain. Creator Signal has said decentralization made it hard to build good software. The experimentation with decentralized system has nonetheless ramped up the last month, which is fact. Brave, a new browser, announced last week it will be beginning. This was huge for those that didn't hear about this. Integrating a blockchain-based system known as IPFS into its software to make web content more reliable in case big service providers went down and tried to ban sites. The IPFS, so thinking ahead of the curve. I appreciate Brave is doing that. The IPFS network gives access to content even if it has been censored by corporations and nation states. This is what the founder of Brave said at Library, the blockchain-based alternative to YouTube. The number of people signed up daily has surged 250% from December. The company said the newcomers appear to have largely been motley crew of Trump fans, white supremacists. The newcomers appear to have largely been a motley crew of Trump fans, white supremacists, and gun rights advocates who violated YouTube's rules. See, like I said, that's what they're gonna do. It's all in the language, right? So it's like, well, you shouldn't go there because you're going over there with the white supremacists, right? Those are the people that are going to these new sites. It's not just regular fucking people like myself who's now on Odyssey or Computing Forever. Or even fucking all these scientific normies that are over there that are doing like science videos or videos about video games, like upper echelon gaming, who's now over there. None of that matters, right? Just what it is the white supremacists. See, this is what I'm talking about, man. As technology, it is very cool, but you can't just sit there and Pollyanna and think all the information will be free. There'll be racists and people will shoot each other. It's going to be the total package. Mr. Kaufman said library had prepared for these situations while anyone will be able to create an account and register content on the library blockchain. The company cannot delete, similar to the way anyone can create an email address and send emails. Most people will get access to videos through a site on top of it that allows the library to enforce moderation policies such as Google can filter out spam and illegal content in an email, he said. Even so, Mr. Kaufman said no one would lose basic access to the online conversation. I'd be proud, and big shout out to Mr. Kaufman, said I'd be proud of almost any kind of marginalized voice using it, no matter how much I disagree with it. So he's consistent. But this is what they're gonna do. Is they're going to label you as the absolute enemy, Because what you're doing is, and with blockchain technology, and this is why I'm so excited about the alt tech revolution, is that it's easy for them to do it with Twitter. It's easy for them to do it with Google. They're part of the cathedral. But, and they can have their hands on everything. But with blockchain technology, it's allowing basically people to have to skip. They can skip all of that shit. And there's only so much you can do. Yes, when it comes to server capacity and all that, that is an obstacle that a lot of these companies are having to face. But I told y'all when it happened, don't look at Parler as the norm. Parler's not the norm. Parler didn't do their work. That's where they fucked up. They didn't prepare for this, right? They just thought, them being like an alternative was going to be good enough, but it was never going to be good enough, right? You were going to become the enemy of the cathedral. You need to prepare for such. That's what did them in. And there's a reason why Gab still exists, but Parler doesn't, even though they went after Gab first, because their guys were more so forward thinking. Now, I'm not saying go use Gab or any of those. I'm just using that as an example, right? So, yeah, like it's only so much they can do. The alt tech revolution starts this year. So you better get on where you get on. But you need to be prepared, because what they're going to do is, even if there is one guy that has very questionable content, they're going to present that as if that's the norm. Definitely something like Library or Odyssey, in particular, for example, like, which is just normie shit. It's just a bunch of, it's a political commentators on there, both left and right. And there's like normies, right on there. To sit up here and act like most of the people that are using, like, these websites are definitely in libraries cases, like white supremacists. Like, that's making up most of it. It's just intellectually lazy. It's dishonest, but that's what they're going to do. Is they're going to present you as evil people, because they can't control it, right? See, they can justify that. They can justify taking you off of their shit. They control it. It's part of their cathedral. It's an extension of them. They can't do that with this shit. With a lot of this alt tech, and people are getting, forward thinking, understanding that there's only so much they can do, and we just need to be prepared for it. And what's going to happen is one or two of these alternatives are going to stick. Y'all do understand that. Not all of them. Some of them are going to fail. It's going to fail. It's an inevitable thing. It happens with every business, like every industry. Some of these are not going to stick. A couple of them will. And they're noticing that, because a lot of these sites are getting massive. Like Odyssey is just, its user base is like through the roof right now. So they're becoming a threat. At first it was like, oh, well, these guys are just alternatives. They use our shit anyway. We can shut them down. And then there's a couple of guys, we see the trial and errors, and people learn from everybody else's mistakes, and they say, okay, how about this? We're going to create not only an alternative for you, but you ain't going to be able to fucking shut us down either, because of the technology that we're using. And now they're like, oh shit, we thought we could control the conversation. So this is their last effort. It's the Hail Mary. It's growing. Okay, we'll just call them racist. That'll work. That'll incentivize people to not go to these sites. We just say that it's just white supremacists. Who wants to be on websites with a bunch of white supremacists? That's what they're going to do. No matter how dishonest it is, no matter how much of a lie it is, that's exactly what they're going to do. So you need to be prepared for that, but it's all nonsense. A couple of these alt tech solutions are going to be there for the long run. Which one? Only time will tell. To me, I think when the video platform, I think Odyssey is going to be that video platform. I cannot speak for the alternatives to like Twitters and Facebooks, but I think that for the video platform, I think Odyssey is going to be one that sticks. Odyssey Library are going to stick. And they hate that shit. And I love that they hate the shit, because it's like you're not going to be able to control the conversation anymore. And that's what strikes fear in them, because they just won an entire election essentially by doing that. Being able to, they couldn't do it with like just the direct media, so they did it with social media. They lost that. They lost the media. Like, people don't even take fucking CNN serious. So what do? They fucking got like the social media board members and all that, all like the part of the authoritarian left. They roll them out there to become extensions of them. So Amazon, Apple, and all of them do the same shit, right? It's like, all right, man, we're going to have a coordinated effort to get these people up off of here. And yeah, that's how it works. They can only do so much, guys. And I'm excited. I'm excited.